Okay, so we're here in the catacombs now.
Yep, we've gone New York, Hong Kong, Paris.
Reports I'm finding.
I'm just running for it.
Must be trying to drive Silhouette from their hideout.
And we are just kind of, like we said before, this is going to be a kind of jumping around sort of area, because there's specific things we want to highlight, and the one thing for Paris we want to highlight is this underground Silhouette group.
Yeah, Silhouette, you learn about a little bit at the beginning. They're the ones that blew up the Statue of Liberty.
God. That's the one. Okay, drop it.
Well, now the robot's not doing it.
Yep. Yeah, these mech guys are something else.
Okay, maybe you can't one-shot them, but the sword is still OP. See?
Yeah, that's 3 hits.
And I missed a whole bunch.
This way we get the sweet beats, though.
There we go.
You're close. Silhouette has barricaded themselves. The leader's name is Chad. Strange. The area looks different than it my map. Construction. Maybe they've concealed themselves from Majestic 12.
What did that stone do?
Oh, I remember I got
Oh, there it
really
is.
stuck on here.
There we go.
Because it's like, yeah, it's
Make sure
confusing.
they don't follow you.
How do they know we're good?
I don't
Who are you?
Who are you?
Majestic 12 took my mother prisoner.
Where?
Bunker free.
His accent is amazing.
Chad has a key, but he says it's too dangerous to try to rescue her.
Dangerous.
I'm on my way to see Chad right now. Maybe
It's a carryover from Hong Kong, for sure.
Well, now Deus Ex is made in Montreal by a team of largely francophones.
Yep.
Found
So
the
I don't-
bunker.
They would get their French voice acting up to par, I
How
think.
did you
Yeah.
find
Pretty
it?
quick.
I'm JC Denton.
Whoa.
You might know my
Yeah,
brother
it was.
Paul. I helped him send your group a warning about the crackdown.
Denton. Yes, the satellite transmission saved us from La Prison de Fresnes at least.
Pretty much a skeleton crew you have here.
Jets.
How long can your people hold off MJ-12?
Yeah, it could be
We're not
worse.
mercenaries. When the troopers moved into the crypts,
So is
half
that
of
like
my
a...
people retreated without firing a shot.
It almost looks like he's
2
wearing
of them took a wrong turn and were taken prisoner.
t-shirt from...
Where?
Watchmen.
Bunker
Watchmen.
through
Yeah,
the tunnels
mhm.
behind the second blast door.
Yeah, because it's got
Maybe I
like
can
the
help you
blood
out.
and the... It's
In
like a
exchange for a
smiley
dead
face.
smiley face, got the
I
X's
need to
on
find
the
Nicolette
eyes.
Duclair.
Nicolette.
That was a good, that's good
What do
find.
you want with Nicolette?
I need to contact some friends of her mother's.
Oh yes, Beth. A great woman. Nicolette is very secretive about her mother's friends.
So she's
She
actually
tells
part
us
of the
that
inner
they
circle.
are
of the
wealthy
Illuminati.
and support
Yeah.
our cause, but they have many
I
enemies and
don't
need to be
think Nicolette has
protected.
any idea. I don't think
I
Chad
might
does
be
either.
able to help you, but I must be certain of your loyalty.
You have a right to be cautious. Just point me to Bunker 3.
I have the key to the blast door, which is directly across from our hideout, and a map you might find useful. Get my people back and I will put you in touch with Nicolette.
Not a bad deal. Now, if you keep talking to him, he gets more philosophical with you, I think.
It's unfortunate I cannot send someone with you.
We can keep
My
it.
people simply are not the best soldiers.
That's true.
We train teams to wire buildings with C4. They go in at night to avoid confrontation. In a straight fight against commandos, they just don't have the equipment or expertise. I can't bear to imagine what methods of interrogation Majestic 12 will use on my people. Silhouette is not a military group. Our attacks are symbolic, intended to influence the public.
Yeah.
We publicize certain things like the Statue of Liberty bombing. It's just so fitting that the American government will destroy the gift of freedom we gave your country almost 200 years ago, and then try to blame it on us.
Oh, is that what happened? I guess that's what happened.
Yeah.
Is the fuck. So I don't know, I guess I forgot about that. The U.S. government blew up the Statue of Liberty, blamed it on a organization that they wanted to brand terrorists, all in the name of increasing liberty, but it was so that they could usher in these new laws. This is essentially like the 9/11,
Conspiracy.
Conspiracy
yeah.
theory,
So weird.
like a year before it actually happened.
Hmm.
But also, oh, that's pretty messed up.
Yeah, it really is. And well, and you think like the game came out a year before, but like they were working on this, you know, in the 90s, so
yeah.
that's even more crazy.
Well, and it's interesting, like, they're not... The story isn't anti-government per se. It's like the government has been infiltrated by these other interests, and they're manipulating things and manipulating people. and they're putting certain things into place so they play it in their favor.
Well, and you think about it, and I hate to bring up Trump, but that's kind of what he's trying to make people think too. Like, he's going to be the one that takes down, like, the corruption in the government and things like that. But he's embodiment, like, he embodies, like, corporation, right? So it's like, it makes no sense coming from him, basically, right?
Well, he's anti-establishment, but he's also, like, a pro-business.
Yeah.
You know, very capitalist, like, free market ideas, yeah.
The rhetoric in Washington has done more to defeat liberty than all of the armies and police forces in the world.
Yep.
When government surveillance and intimidation is called freedom for terrorism or liberation for crime, freedom and liberty have become words without meanings.
Now, we've been talking to this guy for, like, how many unique lines does this guy have? Like, they really put a lot of effort into, like, making sure this character was pretty, like, fleshed out.
Yeah, and it's not even in a conversation. You literally have to stand here and keep spam clicking him until he gets deeper and deeper, and you can keep pushing him, like, he keeps going, yeah.
And I think that's actually a thing that most people would maybe miss if they went back and played this game, because I think they assume that most people, when you're done a cutscene, don't have anything else interesting to say, or they have one or two more lines, and of those one or two more lines, the second one's always like, go away, or like, don't you have a mission to do now?
Yeah.
Or something like that. So, like, the fact that we're sitting here talking to this guy, and he's coming up with some pretty profound things, I think is really neat.
It's one of the few games where, like, playing it the second or third time, it's not actually faster, it's longer.
Yeah.
Because you tend to look elsewhere and dig deeper and start reading all those data cubes and the books and that sort of thing, and having these extended conversations with people just to see what else is there. It's one of those things you keep scratching the surface and there's always something underneath to find, which I think it's a real feat to pull off with your level design and your game design itself. Yeah.
But then, like, it basically means that the first playthrough can be overwhelming. Like we were talking about with Mankind Divided being so dense and detailed. It's just, it's almost too much. And if you have that completionist sense, like, drive in you when you play games, it's just like, eventually I think you do have to just come to terms with the fact that you're going to miss things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and this came out at a time where, like, I didn't realize that you could just keep pushing things and finding more things there to find. So I just kind of made a beeline through it the first time I played it.
Yeah.
And then I enjoyed it, and I went back to it and was like, oh, I'm going to play the stealth way, because I was probably aggressive the first time I played. And then, yeah, it's just, there's more there.
I know Majestic 12. When they have learned what they can, they will execute every last one of the prisoners. This war all around us is being thought over the very meanings of words. Just as Bat King described the novel as a competition between various languages, so we describe culture itself, which thrives upon convulsions and upheaval.
Is that your favorite line in the game?
Yeah, well, not in the game. I just love that, like, he cites Bakhtin, like, 10 clicks into this aside conversation, and you're finding things with depth. And, like, that's a pretty profound thought. Like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, how, like, you never, I don't know any cultural theorists that have come up in any other game, to be quite honest. Other, like, in the mainstream, at least. Like, outside of, like, art games and academic games.
Yeah, so what do you think that you like most about that? Like, is it kind of like a way for the game devs or, like, the writers to kind of flaunt their kind of expansive knowledge on the topic? Or do you think, like, what does that mean, I guess, when you start talking about those things in the context of a popular video game, basically?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, for me, one of my big pet peeves is when, in games or really films too, is when the villains don't have any other kind of moral justification. They're just doing what they're doing because they're evil. But when you start talking to people in Deus Ex, it's much different because everyone has their own ideology. They're very happy to explain that ideology to you. Yeah. But it's different in subtle ways, and I'm very resonant with what's going on in our present day. Like, talking with war over what words actually means, and, like, who gets labeled as a terrorist and who doesn't, and that sort of thing. It's very, and then tying it to like this larger part of our human history of like languages and culture and competition between them. It's just, I don't know, it brings, because at one point you're told that Silhouette is a terrorist organization, and that you're thinking going into an encounter with them you might want to be on guard, but you find out, you know, they've been framed. How about you?
See, I think that when you start throwing, it's hard to separate this kind of stuff with the current conversations we're having about Mankind Divided and having like that, in my opinion, faux academic conference, the Human by Design, where you're just like look at how much we've researched. I don't get that with this game, but it's like we're starting to see the evolution of that, and like smart stories and smart sci-fi, and I think a lot of people are having conversations nowadays with like the science that goes behind narrative, and like what comes to mind is The Martian. When that was written, a novel, the guy put the science behind it, but fictionalized, like, for example, the sandstorm on Mars, because you needed something to happen to get the crew going. And so people write into him all the time saying, like, yeah, you can't have a sandstorm on Mars. And he's like, yeah, I actually know that, but this is a story. And so I find that when you are inserting these kind of quotes into a game, it has to be for a good reason, and I think this is a very good reason to do that, because you're showing that this character has a set of ideologies based on his education or like his own reading of things in this world where, you know, it doesn't seem like a lot of people are still educating themselves on that. Like, people have opinions about, like, the government, but as a leader, he has some sort of knowledge that exists beyond that, I think. And it's, you know, when you start citing things like that, it shows that he's well-read and that he's had a long time to develop his political beliefs.
Yeah, there's a depth there that you don't
Culture,
often
by
get
definition, a shared territory of meaning, inspires conflicts far more destructive than any dispute over territory on the Earth's surface.
And, like, although these kind of lines are kind of like...
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, like, these kind of lines are kind of, like, seem a little out there. You know what I mean? Yeah, heavy-handed. But I think it encourages the player to think about their ideologies as well, and not in a way that's just like, well, what is JC going to do? It's like, you know, it's not just a weighing in of the facts at the end of the game where you're just like, well, what's the best decision for JC, or like, what do I think? It's like, no, the game is actually encouraging you to think about these issues throughout the entire game and to develop your own idea. And in a way, talking to these characters is your own type of research, because you're like, oh, this guy said this person said this, and like these are things that really resonate with me, and so you almost become like a participant within the culture.
And I think that feeds into the multiple choice ending of the game, where like it's pretty contrived at a certain point, but it's also, all of these conversations are kind of preparing you for what kind of future you want to set forward.
Yeah.
And like taking into consideration, like, you know, just how dastardly the governments have performed in this world, and deceptive they've been, that you probably are hesitant to hand power back to them.
Yeah. And yeah, it's definitely not one of those things where, like, you know, you hate to pick on Mass Effect 3, but it's like, yeah, like, you're this, like, grand leader that apparently gets all the power in the world to make the decisions. Here, it makes a little bit more sense because of your involvement the whole time.
Yeah,
on
and
the
your brother's
one
involvement
thread.
too.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, I find with these, like, multiple choice endings for games, or, like, choices in games, is that there's very little involvement on the part of the player, and almost very little role-playing to be had as well. So even if you wanted to embody that character, there's like this huge dissonance most of the time with kind of final decisions in games like that. Final narrative decisions, I should say.